Thank you for
Do I
doing
sound
this,
okay?
by the way.
Oh yeah, no worries.
We have had like a lot of strong feelings about this for a long time, so
Yeah, I think I've like talked to you before in
Yeah.
private as well.
questioning him.
Mhm.
And I've never really talked about it too much because it's like the backlash is really scary about it.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I don't think that Dr. K is like inherently a bad person. I don't. I think he wants to help people. I just don't think it's ethical to go about it in the way that he does.
Right.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think like anyone that openly talks about mental health, like their intention is to help people, but it just has always struck me as like odd in a lot of ways.
Definitely.
I think that like it's the odd thing is that it's disguised as like, well, I'm just giving advice. I'm just giving advice, which is fine. Okay, you're giving advice, but he would do the same thing in his private practice. And all of a
Right.
sudden it would be psychology, I'm giving psychological treatment. So where's the line between the treatment and the advice? There's a
Yeah.
lot of gray area there. And
Yeah,
there's a lot
and
of
like
patient confidentiality. And it's like very,
well, I've been in therapy on and off my entire life, and I just know that like a huge part of therapy is like the confidentiality.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it's just supposed to be so private. And so just from like a personal view, even when I'd watch like some of his discussions, I just almost wanted to be like, I just want to shut the door, like, and just thinking about it, I don't, for me, I'm like, what therapist would feel like comfortable, like doing that and sharing it? But again, I don't know who he is as a person.
but they're signing something that's saying, yes,
Yeah,
I will talk about this in public.
And
right.
they're saying like, I acknowledge that it's not therapy or something like that.
Yes. Right.
But
Yes.
but
Fair enough. But I mean,
still, he would be giving the same advice in his private practice. So how are you saying it's not therapy? It literally is therapy.
yeah,
I suspect that when I put this video out, he's gonna bring this up in his response. He's gonna say like, well, he's gonna say, what is the line? And he's gonna say stuff like, because I've seen him say things like, if I wasn't a therapist and I was giving all this helpful advice, it would be great. But because I'm more qualified, it's worse. And he's like, don't you think that's backwards? And he'll say stuff like, well, I'm not diagnosing anyone officially, so why isn't it just a conversation and stuff like that?
Right. That's a gray area
that's fine
there
for him to say, but it's not just a conversation. You're literally trying. I get he's helping people, but it's more than advice to me. It's more than advice.
I think
especially it depends on the go ahead.
No, you go first. You go.
No, I think it just depends too on the person he's speaking to, because there's a difference between, okay, you have some anxiety when you leave your house and like, that's like a minor issue versus someone who is like seriously very mentally unwell and has multiple things going on, and I think that I could see if it was like a minor thing, it'd be like okay to share, but some of the discussions I've witnessed, it just feels so much deeper than that. It's like when you start to open up about trauma that you've never opened up about to anyone, it's like that needs to be professionally discussed and then like keep
Follow
going
up.
with
It's
it,
like you've opened up Pandora's box.
Yeah, right. It
Yeah.
really.
And I've discussed that with a few people who actually put it that way and said it's like ripping off this Band-Aid and there's this big open wound and now all this info is out. Now all this trauma is out there. But there's only a few sessions and then there's no follow-up. So you have all this stuff that's on the table and then you have someone like Byron who is left to their own devices to deal with it.
Who had no knowledge
very
of how
sick.
therapy is supposed to work or like what's normal versus what isn't, because he really, up until Dr. K, I don't think he ever trusted anyone like that to speak to.
Byron did not have when we were in high school, he saw a few therapists and his view on them was horrible. He didn't enjoy it. He didn't like it. He didn't feel that it was helpful. And because of what happened to his brother, he just was very against it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the more damning things about what Dr. K does is therapy is the fact that he goes almost in every time he does this like not therapy session, he'll go into like some kind of childhood trauma, which is like he's always trying to identify like the root of whatever like ailment is. Which I think that is like a literal definition of psychoanalytical therapy.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's so deep, you know, like, I mean, just on a personal level, I was in therapy for a year over the pandemic for like an eating disorder I had. And there were certain weeks where after I get out of therapy, I'm like, I kind of feel worse because I just opened up all of these things. And now it's like, I need that next session next week to like follow up. I need someone to be there. And I can't imagine you open up about so many deep things like childhood trauma and then that's it. Like there's
okay, well, it's up to you now to follow up and get a therapist and see. And it's like,
Yeah,
a lot of people don't know how to go about doing that or feel comfortable doing that because they're so, maybe they've never experienced therapy before, or they're just shy and uncomfortable. And it's like, there's all this stuff to work with now. And it's like, what do I do? What do I do?
Yeah. It also kind of irks me too, how like, just as the community, the gaming community, like looks at him like, oh my God, this amazing therapist that's like going to help all of us. And it's like, if you really have problems, like go to a real therapist, you know, like.
I understand that side though, because people,
well, they feel safe with him.
People that don't have money sometimes, or whatever the case is, this is someone, you know, and I've watched things of Dr. K where listening to him has been helpful. So I don't want to like demonize him. I don't want to turn him into this awful guy, because I do think his intentions are pure.
Yeah.
And I understand that having other people watch can be very helpful to people that haven't experienced therapy or need therapy, and they're like, oh, maybe I can use some of these tools to help myself. Like, that seems important, and I get that. And I just think for Byron, it was
so complicated.
I wish Dr. K would have like recognized maybe how sick this person really was. Because Byron was very, very sick.
Yeah. And for the average person like myself, I'm not trained to notice those things, you know, and I beat myself up now, of course, for like looking back and just being like, how did I miss that? My argument for that is you would think a person who is a professional like Dr. K or other therapists, you know, would maybe recognize those traits. But at the same time, it's like, it's no one's fault for that situation.
I'm
obviously
not going to frame this video as Dr. K caused, you know, Byron's passing. Because I think that's insane to say, but
no, of course,
My perspective is that he was like negligent or like reckless with how he approached it.
I think that's our issue a little bit too.
We do not know what happened behind the scenes. Like, I don't know what Byron's private conversations with Dr. K were like.
Right. I was supposed to ask about that, because I do remember he at one point was like, we should talk off stream once a week or something.
And I know that they did have private sessions off of stream, because Byron told me about that. And in a private session, that is him dispensing psychotherapy.
Yeah.
Right.
Or whatever it was. And Byron and I still have the chat logs of Byron telling me, yes, I have been having private sessions with Dr. K. So I know that was going on. And then when I talked to Byron later on, I said, oh, are you still seeing Dr. K? And he said, no, I'm not, because he's busy with his stream and everything. And he doesn't, you know, we're not going to see each other anymore, because I was inquiring about a therapist, because I wanted to get a therapist. And I loved what Dr. K had to say. And I was like, maybe I could possibly get him to be my therapist.
Yeah.
But then Byron was like, oh no, he's very busy. He doesn't even have time for me anymore. So I was like, oh, okay.
Wow.
That's very interesting, because I have to go back and find this clip from him, but there was a time where he recently said that, like, I'm very careful not to blur the lines between therapy and just talking to someone, which is like why he's like, I'm either one or the other with the people I talk to. And like, okay, that's so far consistent with how things were with Byron, unless he was doing therapy off stream, in which case he was doing both, and now it's confusing.
Yes. Right. Both of those things were going on. Like, and Byron at the time, I remember he tweeted out that he was diagnosed with BPD. Now, who was he seeing at the time? Dr. K. Byron would have told me if he was seeing another therapist.
Right.
Like, we talked weekly. He
Mhm.
would have said something. So who did that diagnosis have to come from? And
Right.
if you are giving a diagnosis, you are doing it as a doctor, not as someone
Yeah.
that's just giving
Right.
advice. Because it's illegal to diagnose somebody as a random person, obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
So to me, that's very interesting. And then, I messaged Dr. K after, and it was so hard to get a hold of him. And I get it. He's very busy, but and I know that doctors have confidentiality
can't
agreements. They
imagine, though,
cannot
what
discuss patient matters, even if that person has passed on. There's very strict laws
Yeah.
about that.
Mhm.
But it just felt like very cold, and I was
Business.
looking for someone to like comfort
Yeah.
me, and you would think like a psychologist would feel more. It felt
Yeah, I
so
think we were
businessy, like very cut
expecting a
and
little
dry.
bit, like, different of a reply, you know? But,
Yeah.
but from his POV, like, I could understand,
Well,
he's
what
like,
did he say?
Oh
well,
God, I'd have to look back through the emails at the,
I
because
mean,
it was
like
just so.
generally, not specific. Like, what did you reach out to him with generally, and like in general, what was his response?
I just said hi, hi there. I'm Byron's ex-girlfriend of, almost a decade. He was very important to me. I know that he was seeing you, and I was just wondering if you could, maybe console me a little bit and help me understand. I'm not looking for you to discuss privately what happened. I just, would like to talk to you so I can get some comfort because you
Mhm.
were so close to him.
closure.
Right.
And it was just like,
He kind of pointed you to, like, talk to reach
he
out
pointed
to
me to
a
like
guidance
talk to a
counselor or something.
psychologist or something or somebody else, or, and I get that, but I just wish it felt a little more warm. It just felt cold.
Right.
Mhm.
And I get that they have to be like that. I get it, but it was hurtful because this is someone I've known since I was 17, and it's like, you can't give me a little, like, I'm not looking for you to give me any private answers, but just,
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I spoke with Gary last weekend, and he actually mentioned that you had reached out to him. He didn't say
Mhm.
what you reached out with, but he said that you reached out, and that, like, the way he put it was that, like, for legal reasons, he told you that he couldn't respond.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he seemed to tell Gary too that like, oh, he can only talk to him once or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, dude, um his brother just took his life. Like, come on, like talk to
Yeah.
the family a little bit. Like, I don't know what was said, but it just felt like very odd. And I know that he's watching out for himself because obviously he doesn't want a lawsuit. He doesn't want to be blamed for Byron's
Right.
death, which no one is doing that. But
Well,
I don't
at
know.
this point, he's built a business for himself, right? Like, it's not
Right.
just, he doesn't have just his license to help people with therapy. It's like he's created a whole online business for himself. And, you can't blame someone for not wanting to lose that. But then I like get lost in between, like, okay, is that ethical? Like,
Mm-hmm.
Is it?
is it right to just to like protect I don't know.
And there's a lot of like, was Byron talking to him towards the end? Was Dr. K reaching out? Was Byron not responding? Like,
Right. We don't know those
we
things.
won't know those things.
Yeah. I did ask Gary about that as well. He said that Dr. K said he tried to reach out, but that Byron didn't bond or something.
Oh,
Oh, I think it's lagging.
Oh
it's
God.
a little lag.
Hold on.
Little.
Hopefully it'll pass. Sorry, my internet I'm Canadian, so my internet sucks.
You're fine.
Oh, where are you from?
Toronto.
Oh, nice.
Oh, cool. Oh my God,
Yeah.
cool.
But
That's
unfortunately, we have really bad internet, so this happens a lot.
That's
Ours has
okay.
been crap lately too. I don't know why.
No, yeah, what I was saying was that Gary told me that Dr. K told him that he was trying to reach out to Byron, but then Byron wasn't responding. But I'm not really sure, like, the time frame of that, or
Right.
And that could be a possibility.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
don't.
it's hard to know the truth now.
What did you guys think? Like back when he was first started doing these sessions or whatever you want to call them online, like what was your guys' impression of that at the time?
I
thought it was
personally
amazing.
I had the complete opposite
Really?
reaction. I felt uncomfortable watching it because to me I felt like it was just so personal, but that's just me. Like I like I said earlier, I just wanted to like close the door and like let them. But I also kind of was like, okay, I feel that way. But at the same time, it was like, if this does help somebody else, not feel so alone with their problems, and
Mhm.
I could see the plus side to that. For me personally, I think just knowing Byron too is hard for me to like see him in pain again,
Yeah.
emotionally,
When he was the
because
sessions where he was crying, I
yeah,
still haven't
it was
watched them. I had
very,
to
very
turn away
hard
because
for
it was
me.
really painful to see that. But in the
Yeah.
beginning, I thought, oh, this is great. He's finally like, and
Yeah.
even he would tweet about, oh my God, I feel so good. This is
Mhm.
amazing. He seemed like he was really enjoying it, like getting everything out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Sorry,
Can you
our
hear that?
shower.
Sorry, that's our shower. Is that going to be
That's fine. I can faintly hear it, but it's like really not.
There. It's
okay?
okay now. The
I
pipe
can put a
stopped.
headset on if
It's totally fine.
necessary. Is it okay?
Yeah, no.
What was I going to say? What were we talking about?
Our reactions.
Yeah. But when you
Yeah,
started
no,
doing it.
yeah. In the beginning, I did think it was very helpful. A part of me was like, oh, this probably should be done in private, or I kind of worried about it a little. But Byron has, if you watch Byron stream, Byron is a person that wears his heart on his sleeve.
Yeah.
He says whatever he feels, said
Yeah.
whatever he feels, and like felt, and wasn't really worried about the consequences. He just,
Mhm.
that's how who he was.
And I think too, Byron appreciated people reaching out to him and like thanking him, like, thank you for like, being able to be so open about this stuff, and that made Byron feel good, I think,
Yeah.
I also think it's worth noting that everything he talked about that like he went into with Dr. K, I know he did at one point or another talk about it on his stream
True.
beforehand, just because he's
Yeah,
so
he
open
was very
book.
open.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, with other people, that's probably not usually the case.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that some of the people, I've watched a lot of Dr. K's stuff. With some of the people, they don't, as far as I can tell, I don't know, I'm not a psychologist, but Byron had deep issues, and some of these people, they just have slight anxiety, or they're worried about something. And Byron was very, very sick. It's very different than a lot of the people who just have some anxiety or whatever it is. I'm not diminishing their issues, but
Right.
I just think if
people
you recognize that, I don't know. It's a little like, I don't know. It just made me a little uncomfortable after the fact.
Did you,
when I think about it.
were you guys did you guys talk to Byron during that period where he seemed to be doing better post starting to talk with Dr. K? And if you did, then what was like your impression of his mental state at that time before things started to slip back downwards?
It's hard to tell because Byron, and he was very open about this too, was taking shrooms at the time.
Right.
And he was very open about that. And so I couldn't tell if it was the shrooms or Dr. K or a combination of both. But he would just, when I did talk to him, he seemed like he was
doing better.
But then the pandemic hit and he just took a nosedive.
Right.
And he was just like, everything I've worked for now is like, the feeling of like happiness he had. I think once he realized, oh my God, I'm sad again, he was like, wait, this isn't
devastated.
He was like, wait, I'm sad again. This is fucked. Like I didn't think this was going to happen to me again. And it was just,
That's something that's pretty interesting as well, because it's like you have this situation where he says he's not giving therapy, but he's a psychiatrist, and it's pretty clear that I have multiple examples of this saved of Byron sort of omitting, like he's like lets it out that he clearly is viewing it as therapy, saying not therapy, and he's you know what I mean?
That's my problem.
Yeah.
And then he feels better and he thinks it's because of the therapy you know what I mean? Yes. And then then he feels worse. And then you know what I mean? It's like this weird situation where the fact that Dr. K is saying it's not therapy, I don't know. It's like
it is weird. I totally get what you mean, because he says it's not therapy. He makes people sign a thing that says this is not therapy. But because the sessions are so intense and because it is set up exactly like therapy, you cannot blame a person for believing after the session that it felt like therapy and feeling like it was. And so it can get very confusing for the person receiving that, because then they feel like, okay, I just received therapy, but it wasn't, but I guess it was. So
It's like,
I'm getting the help I need. And when in reality, this is not true therapy then. And you do need to get actual help.
but it's like,
And
I'm in therapy right now. What he's doing, it's therapy.
yeah,
You are dispensing therapy to people, especially because you are a board certified psychologist.
no, it's totally therapy. I mean, absolutely.
It's kind of like a doctor performing surgery on someone and making them agree that it's not surgery.
It's like, oh, I'm
I can
gonna,
see that, yeah.
give you a bypass, but if I not really a surgeon or whatever. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, and
Right.
it's weird.
Or like if you open up in therapy about a family member, they have to be like, they might have this, but I can't diagnose them as that. It's like it has to be disclosed.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
I
just
also
interesting.
I don't know if Byron was taking any medication. He said something to me once about taking meds. Now, I don't know if he was talking about mushrooms or something else. I'm not certain. But if he was taking medication, who prescribed that?
Right.
And doesn't a doctor have to do that?
You think Dr.
Yeah,
K
that's
did it?
different.
I have no idea. That's something I didn't discuss with Byron.
Right.
I'm not sure.
If I had to guess, I'd say he probably didn't prescribe him anything because I think that he wasn't even living in Texas at the time. It'd be really hard for him to, because I don't think legally he's able to like have a client as a therapist that's in a different state or something.
I think that might be true because each state has different rules and regulations. And laws.
Yeah. I also remember Dr. K saying he didn't want to agree. He didn't agree with Byron taking the mushrooms. I remember that, even though Byron, I think, was self-medicating,
Which I agree. I don't know how good the mushrooms were for Byron, especially if you already have some sort of imbalance in your brain. They say people who that have imbalances should not take psychedelics unless they're in a very good place. Now I know,
like microdosing too.
Right. No, but I know he says it helped him, but long term, what is that doing? What is that doing there?
Yeah.
Who knows? So
what stood out to you guys as like red flags in terms of the stuff they discussed or just in general between their relationship?
One time he told Byron, like, do you think you ever want to have kids? Do you think you, and I just thought that was so odd because Byron would not, God rest his soul and everything, and I love him so much, but he would not, with the way that he is, could not be a parent. There's no way. There's no way. Just
he needed to figure his own issues out. Like that's not, and I'm not a therapist, so I don't know if that is a good approach, but in my opinion, I feel like a child isn't the solution to like people who are suffering from like BPD and bipolar, like let's really dive deeper into like those issues, maybe get you on certain medication, have therapy that is, every week or whatever, and then down the line children. But like right away to talk about that is, I just found it a little strange.
I suspect that I do remember him saying that. I have to like rewatch to get exactly what he was saying, but I suspect he was asking that like there was an ulterior motive behind it. It wasn't just like he wanted to know if he wanted to have children. It was like about something else probably.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's honestly, it's been a long time since I've watched the videos, probably since Byron passed, because it's just too hard for me. Like watching him cry, watching him go, it's like, it's too much. I can't look at it.
Yeah.
Well, I could tell you some of the red flags that stuck out to me, which the most, so like in the first session, like one of the weirdest ones, and I cannot understand what the hell he was thinking when he said this. This is already after he's established that Byron had been suicidal in the past, and if I was a trained therapist, I think it would be pretty obvious that like he wasn't out of those waters quite yet or whatever.
Yeah.
And he starts telling him about reincarnation, and I thought that was so. He starts saying like, you can roll like I believe in reincarnation. I've seen my past lives through meditation, and like I believe that like it's kind of like we'll roll again. And then just right after that, it was already weird that he said that.
Yeah.
And it's even weirder when you consider that towards the end, Byron had a stream where he was saying those things. He was saying like
literally looking out the window saying like, maybe I need to level up. Maybe
there's a different
maybe I can roll again or end the simulation.
Right. Yeah.
And he talked about that too, actually, Dr. K, in that first talk. He talked about like reality is a probability that gets collapsed or something. And, you know, like all that stuff is fine to talk about in general, but I think
in a normal setting, yeah,
it's kind of weird to talk about that after opening up childhood trauma. But after he says the reincarnation thing, he says, by the way, please don't kill yourself, I could get sued or something. And then Byron says, I'll try not to kill myself anytime soon. And it's like, wow, that's
that's disturbing.
That part.
Yeah, that's in the first talk they have. It's like halfway through.
Well, Byron, as long as I've known Byron since he was 16, has been an atheist since I met him. Did not believe in reincarnation, did not believe in heaven or hell or anything like that.
He questioned like being conscious, you know, and what that meant.
Right.
Well, I think towards the end he was interested in a possible like other dimensions and maybe looking at some of that stuff and thinking, oh, could there be something else? Maybe there could be. But I would hate to think that like the discussion of it made him kind of, you know, who knows what the combination of mushrooms, what his brain was going through and thinking, oh, maybe this could lead somewhere. I don't know.
I do think the mushrooms were well, probably the mushrooms and Dr. K were a factor in him being interested in consciousness like that, because he seemed to talk about like how mushrooms allowed him to step outside of his thoughts, and they definitely talked a lot about that stuff. And you know, when I watch it, like so much of it I like. I can't help. I'm like, wow, he's saying such great things. Like this guy's awesome.
Yeah, no, I could see, especially because he caters to like, you know, people who sit on their computers all day, right? Like it's what does he call it? Like healthy gamer or whatever.
Yeah, healthy gamer GG.
So yeah, like he is targeting his audience. His target audience is people who like are maybe a little socially awkward or like people who like just want to be alone at home but learning how like to balance that with, you know, normal life. And I see where it would be helpful to some people, but in this specific situation, it just feels.
This is a really like big red flag example. But I suspect that it's not even the only one. Off the top of my head, one of the things that comes to mind is Sweet Anita. I don't know if you know her.
I am familiar with her, but I don't watch him, you know, at all. So like I don't.
Her. Yeah.
No, I don't watch Dr. K.
Oh yeah.
So I didn't watch there, but I know she was on his thing, right?
Yeah, they did like a bunch of sessions, and I actually haven't seen it myself. Is a friend of mine pointed out to me that it was like another example, very like intense series of conversations.
Oh wow.
Obviously, like I think that she wasn't in. I don't think that she was in. I don't know. I can't even speak on it. I haven't watched it yet, but you know, it seems like things have worked out better in that case. But it is interesting to me because it happened obviously after the talks with Byron, so it's not like he's stopped doing what he's doing after everything.
Right.
Okay, so here are the things I have. So there's the what I told you about. I'll try not to kill myself anytime soon.
Yeah.
Then there's a time when this is after he's established that like the game is his way of like helping people who he went through. And like I get what he's saying here, but I think the phrasing is horrible and it's just weird.
I also found that was odd.
He says this: "You can die when you finish your game." And
I remember him saying that.
And obviously, like I know he's trying to say like you have this mission, so you can't stop yet. But I just think that like you can die when you finish your game is like a horrible phrasing, and I know that like last summer, early in the summer, he did like a test with Everland where people got to join and play for the first time, and I remember him being like, "Oh, I'm so happy! Like this is the first time like people are playing," and it's like I don't know, that the combination of the two is just like really fucking weird.
Especially
weird,
for
too.
someone, especially because he knew Byron had been suicidal his whole life.
Yeah.
Like to say
It's
something.
like the wording sometimes for someone who is suicidal and was, it's like, I don't know.
Also, Byron, when he latches onto an idea, is like an addictive sort of
it was
personality.
obsessive.
So someone saying that to him,
He like ruminates in his head.
yeah, definitely. Byron would fixate very hard on something, and I think that's apparent from his stream, whether it was Hearthstone or WoW or something. He would get fixated on one thing, and it's like he couldn't let it go. He couldn't let it go until he fixed it or whatever. But so who knows how? It's like I don't see. I don't want to like say anything bad about him, but at the same time, like, as a psychologist, wouldn't you recognize that in somebody? Like, wouldn't you recognize?
You think that, again, like I said earlier, certain signs would be like red flags, especially if someone is like talking about taking their life or has in the past. That's like a pretty big fucking deal.
Yeah.
That's not a minor thing.
And even if he wants to say that it's not therapy, I do think that there's this sort of like, if you're going to steer the conversation into these sort of deep waters, then you have to be prepared to see if there's any hints that like they can't swim in the deep water.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure, well, like true therapy, if the therapist feels like you're in danger to yourself or others, they have to, But I also don't know above the age of 18, like what the rules are too,
What do
That is
you
a
mean?
good question. I think you're saying like institutionalized or something.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you're under 18, like you don't have, like, it's not up to you. Like it's up
Right.
to the state to like
Right.
put you someplace. But as you get older, above the age of 18, you have to like sign something to, right?
I'm actually not 100% sure on that. I do, like, I would
It's kind of fucked up.
assume that like even if you're over 18, if it's like an emergency, that you can be taken,
Right.
like, you could be committed for like at least 24 hours or something.
Yeah.
I've definitely.
Isn't it 5150 or something?
5150. Does that mean?
I think that's the 72. It's like 3 days where you're held somewhere.
Right.
And when Byron had his first experience, which he discussed on stream, it was awful and traumatizing, which is why he never wanted to go back.
Yeah.
I mean, it was literally the things he told me he saw in there was horrifying.
Yeah.
I do remember listening to him talk about that and think it is fucking terrible.
So fucking
it's
horrible.
Terrible. It's like, what do you do with someone who wants to fucking die? Like, what are you supposed to, there's what's the answer to that? How are you supposed to help that person? They don't want to be here anymore. You're gonna lock them down to a bed and, I mean, how do you fix that?
Yeah.
I think that this is like an interesting like the argument like in defense, or not defense, but just like for Dr. K being a good thing, because it's like he is pushing the boundaries, which has its consequences, but it also has its like positive consequences in the sense that like he's paving a way forward for like a better system. And that's like one of the things I really like about him. In fact, anytime he's not doing a like not therapy conversation, I love what he's doing, because he's just talking about mental health, and like that's amazing.
Yeah.
I almost wish instead of like using people to like talk about mental health, he would like just talk about it in general,
Yeah.
No, I do
like
think
that idea better.
What he's done for mental health has been great. I mean, I have been helped by watching his streams before. Just by some of the stuff he says, I think he's positive, and I like his take on psychology.
Sort of Eastern twist to it.
Yeah, I do like that. I think it's interesting. I mean, I've always had very like clinical, like cut and dry medicine doctors, and his is more, spiritual. And I that's not something.
And I think that did work for Byron, because he was so turned off by like all the clinical doctors. Like they're just going to get me in there and they're just going to write a script for me, and that's that. And I think that's what he saw in Dr. K was this is different, and he appreciated that.
Yeah,
And I
it's
think
more real, I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he saw Dr. K as like a cool, a friend. This guy plays video games. This guy,
Yeah,
he's
he
easy
wanted
to
to be able to
talk
relate
to.
to
I
him.
think it felt more comfortable rather than this like very like sterile type of like
Yep.
office where it's just like pen and paper and
they're just looking to give you medicine.
Yeah.
right.
At the same time, though, I feel like Byron could have benefited from like both,
Right.
because someone that's maybe that chill, for someone that's sick, there's consequences to that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
think that it would have made a big difference if he was also seeing a traditional therapist?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
People who have BPD and bipolar, there's a type of therapy called DBT that's supposed to be really effective. And I never heard that being discussed. And, people who do have or BPD are in weekly therapy and also sometimes prescribe mood stabilizers. And I never heard that being discussed either. But again, I don't know what was discussed in private.
I think that Byron mentioned in one of the talks that he had previously tried lithium. I don't know if that's a mood stabilizer.
It's an antidepressant.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't think lithium is an antidepressant.
Oh, really?
I think it's Byron was on lithium when we were in high school, and he hated it. It made
Yeah.
him feel like a zombie.
Yeah.
Couldn't stand it.
Yeah. So I guess like past experiences, like, and Byron was going to do what he was going to do,
Right. Yeah,
I'm trying to look at, sorry.
it's definitely like again, like I don't think obviously Dr. K is the reason things happen, but
No.
I don't think that Byron should have been on the stream in general, though. I think that if they had only talked off stream, granted, I don't know if Byron would ever have agreed to it. I suspect it would have been a lot healthier, though. You know what I mean? Is one thing
And
that
more frequent.
I think is like you touched on this already about the confidentiality thing. Because I remember seeing, and I don't know if this is still on his Twitter. I might have to go look through it and find it. But I remember he tweeted one day that he had gotten an email that said like, "You should kill yourself like your brother" or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel like that happened because of the sessions with Dr. K. Even though he had talked about it before, I feel like it really got like a spotlight on it because of the talk.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
It amplified it.
Yeah.
People get messages like that all the time.
Even before the talks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. But, it always could have brought things back around again.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? That
Yeah, 'cause
really,
it was all out in the open at that point.
really, really, really affected him. Like seeing that shit. When I think of that, the anger I have inside of me is like, I can't even handle it. Like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of really shitty behavior. I don't want to say shitty people because I don't know what the fuck they're going through. But
Right.
Right.
fucked up behavior.
Imagine saying that to somebody. Like, what,
Yeah,
what
like,
possesses someone to do that?
I can only guess that they're experiencing some sort of pain and they're trying to like
And
deflect
themselves.
Yeah.
Right.
It must be miserable too, or very sick, because no one who's in their right mind says that to somebody. You just don't. If you're a healthy person, you just.
Yeah, and it's definitely, it definitely affected Byron severely when people would say things like that.
Yeah. Well, he's very sensitive to,
Mm-hmm.
he would see, there'd be a million positive comments and he'd see one negative one and he would pick that one and go to it.
It's always so funny to me too, kind of off topic, but sometimes I see streamers and they are such sensitive people, and sometimes they're, depressed and have anxiety. And I think about streaming, and it's like, it's like the worst like career to have if you have those qualities about yourself. Like that's why I don't stream anymore. I have low self-esteem. I can't fucking handle it. It was making me more depressed doing it. And so it's just, it's like crazy.
Numb to it though after a while. Yeah.
True.
Maybe.
Well,
I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah.
Noticing how it's affecting them, but I suspect it's still impacting them negatively subconsciously.
Yes.
For sure. Yeah.
They're just maybe like, I'm this far into it, even I'm just gonna continue like take it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I definitely agree that it's streaming is a career that is bad for your mental health because isolated, all your
Mm-hmm.
friends you make through it, like Byron talked about this as well, like all the friends you make are busy streaming and not available to
Yeah.
actually be your friend. That's
Yeah.
not even
Yeah.
getting to the part where like they might not even be, they might just be faking being your friend in the first
Mm-hmm.
place because this is like not, it's it's a media thing. It's like Hollywood
Yeah.
influencers.
It's connection.
Yeah. So I definitely, I mean, this is a separate subject, but I definitely think that
Yeah.
like streaming is not good for mental health.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, here's some more things that stood out as red flags to me. So we already touched on this, but in the second stream, Byron said, I got sad because I realized I'm not fixed, which very clearly suggests or shows how he was viewing these talks because
Mm-hmm.
like clearly he had an expectation to be fixed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that says a lot. And I think that like even later that stream he even did like not therapy, like he did like a joke. So even after he said that and Dr. K said like, well, of course you weren't fixed, we were just talking, like that didn't dissuade his expectations anyways.
Right. Yeah, maybe there needed to be more like openness about that, like, or like kind of, I don't want to say tough love, like, hey, we're going to get through this, but like just come back down to reality, like know that the issues that you have, like they're deep and, they need to be worked on more, not just like give Byron this expectation, like he's going to have a few therapy sessions and then like be the happiest person alive,
Mm-hmm.
Byron thought that way about a lot of stuff though. Like his views on things, everything was very like grand, and like
Yeah, I mean, I think that was Byron's like own belief too.
yeah.
In the third stream, Dr. K said, you're starting to become a whole, which, on its own is not necessarily a bad thing, but I do wonder how he took that. Coming from a psychiatrist, we already have like this established that his expectations are that this is going to fix him. And now Dr. K is saying you're becoming whole. So it's this implication that like you're getting fixed. And then obviously, as we already mentioned, COVID happened, things took a turn for the worse, and he realized that it wasn't the case, or at least his expectations and reality weren't.
Right. I guess I could see that kind of side where it's like, okay, he kind of got his hopes up and then they were crushed,
Yeah.
Also, I don't know what kind of, obviously I'm not a psychologist, I don't know what they're taught or how they're taught to speak to people or what kind of tactics they use to get people through things, I don't know if that's like a helpful tactic that he uses in his practice to help people move forward. I don't know.
Like positive reinforcement, maybe.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
that's very true. Yeah, this is the issue here is definitely that like we're not professionals and it makes it very difficult. And I'm even gonna say this in my video. I'm gonna be like, listen, I'm not suggesting I have the answers. I'm a YouTuber,
right?
But I just want to start this dialogue. It needs to happen.
Yeah, a discussion has to be had. To really think about what's going on here because it is like not quote unquote normal to like have public therapy sessions.
Something completely
very weird
because I was talking to my psychologist about it and she just wasn't sure how she felt about the whole thing because when I was explaining it to her, she was like, well, as psychologists, we cannot discuss. She was saying, I'll have parents call me sometimes and they want to know how their children are doing. She's like, I cannot provide them any information. It is illegal for me to do so, which obviously, she's doing it under law. And he's, again, back to not therapy.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just like.
Yeah. I had a similar, when I opened up to my therapist about it too, like she just found it very strange because they're trained, from what I know, a big thing, like I said before, is the confidentiality thing. So it's kind of like breaking a barrier, in the mental health world career by doing something like that, which maybe is like him inside being like, I'm going to do that. So like we can be open about this stuff and breaking the stigma of mental health.
Right.
Like I could see that being a positive thing. But I just think more about, okay, well, you're using real people with real issues to break that stigma. Like maybe we could go a different route.
Yeah, I feel like
That's my main thing, truly.
the fact that the progress is at the expense of others.
That is my main thing.
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree with that for sure. I do feel like it's like he wants to change things for the better, but he went from like, instead of like inching forward, he just like went the full mile right away, and like now we're seeing how that can play out like in different ways.
Yeah,
sometimes good, sometimes bad.
Yeah, definitely.
This is one that I thought was really strange. So he was talking about how there's like evidence that there is a cure for bipolar disorder, which is that like if a person who's bipolar can enter into a stable relationship for 2 years, that they will stop experiencing like bipolar disorder basically. And then Byron was like, well, you know, that's great, but I'm not so confident that I can find myself in a stable relationship for 2 years, considering how unstable I am. And then Dr. K says, well, I'm confident that you're going to find it. And do you know how I'm so confident, Reckful? Because I'm going to be that person. I'm going to be that stable 2-year relationship for you.
Oh.
Which obviously is not how things played out. If, based on what you were saying earlier, that like they weren't in communication as much anymore.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I don't know if they were or not, to be honest with you.
I thought that was super weird, though.
A little odd. Yeah.
I mean,
also, like, doesn't that maybe imply like a romantic relationship? I don't know what study that is.
Yeah, he clarified that like obviously he's not a romantic partner.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that a little strange.
Yeah.
Our relationship was stable and then it wasn't, obviously. And then his following relationships, you know, they started off stable. I don't know the details of what went on with his other girlfriends intensely or anything, but you know, it was very hard for him to have a stable romantic relationship.
Yeah.
He liked
I almost wish go ahead.
Byron liked extremes, and everybody knows that. And so everything in his life is very extreme. And when you see things in extremes, I don't know. I just feel like it wasn't healthy for him. I don't know how Byron could have a stable relationship. And that's not to put him down.
No, yeah.
I just think it was very hard for him.
Yeah, definitely.
I almost wish, instead of like that being said, like, let's try to get you in a stable relationship, it was more shifted towards, let's figure out why you can't have a stable relationship, you know? And maybe work on that more. Not like, let's give you unrealistic expectations and goals that are only going to disappoint you.
Yeah, exactly.
That's,
the fact that he would make himself like I'm going to be the one to do that. And he's giving this expectation, and then he's literally not following through because he's so busy.
Yeah.
That's, I don't know, that just seems so irresponsible. And I don't even think, based on what it sounds like, that he can really use this excuse that it's all this happened in not therapy, because he did have therapy sessions, Byron, off stream. So it's like he already completely blurred those lines.
But we don't know off stream if Byron was paying for those sessions. Were they like a board certified psychological session, or was it still I'm just giving advice. Was it still
like a friend?
But we do know that he received a diagnosis somehow during that time.
We just don't know from who.
I would have to go back and look at the tweet, but I remember him saying, I got diagnosed with BPD, and this is during the time he was seeing Dr. K. So he'd never told me he was seeing any other therapist, so I'm assuming, I could be wrong, that diagnosis has come from Dr. K.
Do you think there's a chance that he's referring to like a previous diagnosis? Because I know he was diagnosed BPD like way before he even met Dr. K.
It could be.
I just wouldn't know from who.
I wouldn't know from who, and I feel like he would have told me that. And it seemed like when he tweeted that, it was like he freshly got diagnosed with it, from what it seemed like. Now, I'm not certain.
Or like a confirmed thing.
I want to go back and look, but I can't even look at his Twitter. It's too much. I don't look at it. But I know it's there. Somewhere.
I think we actually have all of the examples, but the only other thing is, and I sent this to Jackie already, you've seen this, but there's like a a forum,
Forum.
yeah, of like medical students, and they're all discussing how it's like super unethical. They all seem to be. It's such a weird thing because I am trying to get in contact with some kind of psychiatrist to talk to about this, but I think that
It's
like
hard.
it's not only hard to get their attention, but I think that like it would be hard to find someone who can like appreciate what Dr. K is doing and simultaneously be critical of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're more likely to be just 100% critical because they're coming from like, well, we don't do this,
Right.
but maybe there's a reason
Like-
for that. I don't know.
Right.
They would have to watch his videos and, you know, watch them completely and form their own opinion and see it through all the way, you know, and knowing what they know happened and everything. So
yeah,
absolutely. Well, like I
and
said, you know,
sorry, go on.
Go ahead.
No, it's hard because like maybe they don't want to get involved either because it's a very touchy subject, so you never know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I know. Yeah, I like these cars outside are so loud. No, just like I said earlier, I think like it's just I'm not a psych student. I didn't go to school for psychology, but from what I know, it's like a huge principle of therapy is like keeping it super private, respecting that
and confidentiality.
Mm-hmm. But I don't know, like if I became a therapist, I wouldn't want everybody's like, I wouldn't want to use. This is just my personal opinion about who I am as a person.
Mm-hmm.
I personally wouldn't feel comfortable interviewing someone to start like influencer type of situation, you know?
Right.
It just feels for me personally like I wouldn't want to like be responsible for that. I wouldn't want to like do that. But he might be a completely different person than me and see like the pros versus the cons.
Yeah. Definitely.
Maybe he feels like, oh, the pros of this are outweighing any negative.
I think that's how his viewers feel for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know what he thinks, but I'm pretty confident his fan base thinks sort of like he is this like untouchable good force and everything he does is justified or whatever. He's kind of like worshipped in that sense.
Yeah, but like no one is perfect, and
exactly.
We have to be able to see the faults and good things in people, and that's totally normal.
Exactly. Yeah, that's really what this video is about to me.
Yeah,
like pointing out that like Dr. K is a human and we're all flawed, and like it's great what he's doing, but like let's not close our eyes to like what's going on here because that could be really dire. Talking about something so serious.
Yeah, I mentioned this previously. I think that anyone who speaks up against mental health is like doing a great thing, but how you do it is important.
Yeah.
It's really important because it's a serious subject, and you know, talking about suicide and talking to people who are suicidal is very serious. It's, you know, and that is my main problem with it.
I think too, like Byron suffered his whole life with wanting to die. I mean, I remember when we were younger, he would talk about it all the time and very casually too.
Oh yeah.
And I think he would talk about it with people who didn't know him so well, very casually.
Yes.
And I think almost in a way it was like we got so used to him talking about it. Not that we didn't take it seriously, but it just became so common for him to discuss.
Right.
And I mean, I was obviously, I was shocked, but I wasn't like, to me, it made sense because it was more of like a thing of, I mean, it was my biggest fear in life. I thought about it all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I also feel like though for you and I or anyone that isn't trained in psychology, we're not really trained to know like true suicidal behavior.
Right.
Things like that. And it really, I don't want to say it's your job as a therapist because no one can see sometimes the signs no matter what, but like they're the ones who are really supposed to help someone who's that mentally ill.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know what was discussed privately. And if it was discussed privately, like we don't know what Byron said to him, you know?
Yeah. And you also have people who they're very depressed. They're severely depressed and it happens and you're like, okay, they were depressed. And then you have other people where they went out the night
Didn't say
before, they had a
anything.
good time with
Yeah.
friends, and then all of a sudden,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
How was he doing in the time leading up to it? Because I remember hearing that, I don't know, I think that like he had financial troubles or something. Like he wasn't in. Obviously, COVID was a thing, so like there was like external factors that were like weighing down. But I don't really know how he was doing.
It's hard to say what exactly it was because, like I said, Byron has been suicidal since I met him. But I know the game was taking a lot out of him. He was very stressed out about that. I know there were, he wanted to find a girlfriend really bad. He wanted to be in love again. I know he was struggling with, I don't know how, like, finding a purpose. And I think part of his purpose felt like Everlyn, but there were just so many different variables going on. It's hard to pinpoint. I just think it was everything all together just felt overwhelming for him. I don't know. I'll never know, which is the hardest part.
Yeah.
That's the part
And
that
we
I
also weren't in like contact with him every day.
Yeah. I mean,
Right.
I would message him and he would say he was sad. And I would say, is there any, like, what can I do? Please, like, tell me what I can do. And he wanted me to go there and visit, but I couldn't because it was COVID and I was too afraid. I live with my mom and I didn't want to get her sick. But yeah, it's hard to know exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Is there, because this is going to be a dialogue open, like what are the things that you guys want people to be focusing on when this discussion gets open?
Mm-hmm.
I think I just want people to have more of an open mind about the whole online therapy thing and really maybe taking a step back and questioning, if it's 100% okay to do. And, maybe also reminding yourself before watching those things that, you know, yes, it's real therapy that you're watching, but, if you really also don't rely on someone on the internet who speaks about mental health to help you, you know, that if you really are having issues, to go seek out true professional help.
If you are struggling,
Yeah, I don't want anyone to maybe watch someone like that and just be like, okay, they're helping me, or even someone who does speak to him,
because you
I
might
think,
have something unique that is going on with
yeah,
you, and whatever they're saying might not be what you need to hear. If you're really
yeah,
struggling, you need
Right.
to seek help from a professional who can,
yeah,
tailor the therapy specifically to your needs.
right. Yeah, I think we could recognize that it is a positive thing that we're openly talking about mental health, but at the end of the day, uh, mental health is a very serious thing that needs to be professionally dealt with, and I think there's a lack of professionalism there.
Especially in the gaming community, because and I could be wrong, but you're dealing with people sometimes that are a little more why can't I think of the fucking word? Introverted.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Introverted. We're people that sit on our computers more. Maybe we don't go out as much. You have those extroverted people, but from my experience, it's people that are a little bit more like homebodies and everything, and maybe are a little bit nervous to be in front of others and all that kind of stuff. So I can understand why watching something like that might be easier for them.
yeah,
And going out and getting professional help.
yeah,
Going out and getting professional help. Maybe it's like, oh, this is very comforting for me, and I can sit in the comfort of my home and not have to be face to face with somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
also therapy is expensive.
It's
That
expensive.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's like, I feel like I almost want to say that like the system in the United States and elsewhere in the West is like,
yeah,
if we're putting any blame on Dr. K on any of this, like I would put equal parts on the system. You know what I mean?
For sure.
yes,
Because if the
For sure.
system
it's designed
hadn't
that way.
failed, then you wouldn't need to have a situation where you're mixing up whether or not you're getting therapy and all this stuff.
Yeah. Like it almost feels confusing to the people. Like it shouldn't feel confusing. That's the thing.
Right.
It should just you should be able to like if you feel a certain way, get professional help and like that's that. There shouldn't be issues there, but there are.
I it's hard to know when someone says, I want to die. I don't want to
Mhm.
be here anymore. I want to die. There is, like, as far as I know, there is no answer for what to do with somebody
Right.
like that. Like, how do you fix that? I mean, like, Byron went to the psych ward and that made it worse. That was not
Mhm.
helpful at all. So
Yeah.
I don't know what the solution to that is.
I remember like the first therapy session I had like last year, and I asked her, because I went for my anxiety, and I was like, ugh. And she's like, yes, you have anxiety, but you should be happy that you aren't depressed, because depression is so much more difficult to help someone with.
Yeah.
It's really complex. And so I understand from, therapist or not, it is very challenging to help someone that is that ill. Um, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
there's definitely very, very complicated.
Yeah. I just wish we could figure out as a society to make it easier for people who feel like they want to die every day. Why is it that, we have to put them in like this horrible place that traumatizes them and then prevents them from going there again? Why can't we have better options for people? And why can't we be more vocal about the signs of someone that wants to is serious about taking their life too?
Right.
What would be a better option though?
Oh, I don't know.
What do you
Yeah, I have no idea because it's so like I feel like a lot of the advice Dr. K was giving him was good. Even the meditation stuff I thought was like, oh, like
Yes.
this is so smart. He's gonna take a break from his thought loops by like
Mm-hmm.
being in the present moment. I mean, I don't know, maybe he stopped doing it or maybe it just didn't help him. It's very,
Right.
very difficult.
Byron, yeah, I don't know when he stopped meditating, but when he said it was he loved it. He was all about it. He was like, get this app, you need to start meditating. It's helped me so much. I feel so much better.
Mm-hmm.
But again, he was taking shrooms. Now, I don't know how long before he took his life that he stopped taking shrooms. I know at the end, I don't think he was taking them anymore.
Mm.
Yeah. I think they just stopped working for him because he couldn't get
Yeah,
outside.
if you take them so frequently.
The tolerance built up.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And two, when he took them, he liked to be outside in nature. He liked to go for a walk. He liked to do this, go to a coffee shop, go exploring. He couldn't do any of that during COVID. So he's just trapped inside taking shrooms, staring at a fucking wall. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't really want to stream anymore. He was over it.
Right.
So it's like, what do you do all day?
Yeah.
I mean, anyone that is severely depressed, it's hard to do anything.
Also, like I said, Byron liked extremes. He was the type of person who he would wake up and feel like, I want to go to Japan today. I'm going to book a flight same day and go to Japan because I feel like it. So when you're the type of person like Byron was that always needs to be constantly stimulated, that was not a good combination. Like that was terrible.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really affected everybody.
Yeah.
Are you going to say
something? No, I just think, as I'm sitting here and we're talking about these like serious traits of Byron, I just like, I think a part of me wishes like Dr. K maybe saw the severity of those things and led Byron to get more professional help. And that is also like another strong opinion I have about it.
But who knows? Maybe he did say, I need to go. We don't know. He could have said, I really want you to follow up with this after and find somebody. But maybe we know Byron could be stubborn too. Maybe he said, no, I don't want to do that. Or I'm not going to do that. Sure. Or he felt like someone else couldn't help him maybe. Because I could see that happening.
Yeah.
I mean, at the very least, I feel like we can say that he said things that were weird during the sessions when he should have already figured out like thing. He should have been more careful with his words. But even if we don't know like what happened off stream, I do feel like I do agree with that point that like you're gonna be doing this and you're gonna be doing this very sensitive, these discussions that are like basically therapy, then you need to be extremely diligent and careful about how you conduct yourself, because it's no matter, even if you get people to sign this, non-disclosure or whatever it was, like it's clear that like regardless of what you tell them about it not being therapy, like there's an expectation that potentially can form, and so have to be mindful of that.
Yeah.
Especially when it's a very sick person
Mm-hmm.
who is so desperate to just get better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the most painful part, is that he like so badly just wanted to
Be fixed.
like be fixed, like so bad. He just wanted to feel normal, or like,
right.
But Byron really had a hard time with just things being like this. He couldn't deal with just like mundane day-to-day activities. It was like very difficult for him to just be sedentary, or be like, he needed things to be happening all the time to be happy. He couldn't just have a normal day. It was hard for him.
Right. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, I could be wrong about this, but like, it seems like, given that he struggled with like negative thought cycles and stuff, that probably liked having distractions or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, after Byron passed, I read a book called I Hate You, Don't Leave Me, and it was about BPD. And honestly, it should have had Byron's name on the cover, because everything, this book was Byron word for word. I couldn't believe it when I read it. I was like, this is Byron to a T. Something the doctor who wrote it said inside is like, BPDs are like a bottle or a canteen where there's a hole in the bottom. So no matter what you fill it up with, it always seeps out the bottom. It never holds itself. They're always searching. They're always looking. They're always trying to figure out how to, it's always what's next. And
how do we fill this, what I just lost?
Fill this void. What can I fill up this thing with?
And that's just constant. And I think 70% of people with BPD will attempt suicide at once in their life, and 10% will be successful at completing. So,
go on. Sorry.
It just shows the severity of BPD, really. Yeah.
Actually, I should pull that book out, because there's some quotes in there that fit so perfectly what Byron was going through.
And I personally don't remember Dr. K discussing BPD with Byron, but again, they were so hard for me to watch that I probably just didn't pay attention to those things, because I'd skim through and then just be like, okay, this is really intense for me, and I would just shut it off.
Also, who knows how much he could discuss of something like that on stream, because that's a diagnosis, and he can't, because he's not doing real therapy, give a diagnosis on stream.
I know that so like Byron himself brought up BPD when they first started talking. He said, like, I've been diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And then Dr. K at some point said, like, I think that, I don't remember exactly how he phrased it, but he said something like, I suspect there's a possibility that you have depression. And then he said, I'm not saying you don't have BPD. I'm just saying it's possible that you might also have depression on top of that. So
he had to say that for liability.
Yeah, like the way he phrased it, right?
Oh, yeah.
But like clearly he's not afraid to, like, he's doing, it's a pseudo diagnosis, right? He's like, I think you might have this condition, and I'm a doctor. So yeah, I don't know. He definitely like didn't shy away from discussing the possibilities of ailments that Byron might have. But Byron did bring up on his own accord that, he's been diagnosed with it before or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think any therapist too, in a normal setting, if they say like, oh, I think I have this, that's usually how a therapist would phrase it, because they haven't maybe spoken to you long enough to confirm that you're diagnosed with that. And they don't want to do that, So that could have been that case too.
And there's a lot of different criteria that a person has to meet to be diagnosed with something like that. And I don't know if that was discussed.
They didn't as far as I'm aware, they didn't discuss it. Granted, like, I have to rewatch the last 2 talks, but I'm guessing that like if they haven't discussed it so far, it's probably not going to come up.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I just wish that I knew more, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to make, even though Byron and I were really close, I didn't want to make him uncomfortable and discuss his personal, diagnosis. That's very personal.
Mm-hmm.
to somebody.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, we never went deep into that. I knew about the bipolar from when we were younger, but
Right. And that makes sense. It's
yeah.
Yeah.
also like, it's like a fine when your friend has when you're friends with someone or someone who's close to you is experiencing these kinds of things, like part of you wants to do what you can to help, and then part of you wants to like not become someone that like they feel like they can't be around because you always bring it
Yeah.
up and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah.
So it's very, very like sensitive stuff for sure.
Yes.
And to, I know that Byron, the saddest part is that Byron felt like I feel like he felt like he was like a burden to people. I hope he didn't, because he wasn't ever a burden to me or anything like that. Like, um, I just wanted him to get better. And for a while, it was kind of like, fuck, I really should have gone there when he asked me to. I really, really should have gone there and just been with him. But it could have been where I went there and he felt fine for a week, and then the next week, obviously, he could have
Mm-hmm.
felt like shit again. And
Yeah,
then
Mm-hmm.
it would
could
have
have
been like,
felt
okay,
worse even because it's like, oh well,
Yeah.
Jenna
first, well, now
came and now she's not gonna come for a while, and I feel even
right,
worse.
Right.
right. And the loneliness he felt, he would say, like, even when there's a bunch of people around, I still feel lonely. All right, I still feel this like intense loneliness. He could never feel like full, or never like feel love. I don't know if that's an accurate way to describe it, but I know he just felt very lonely.
Yeah.
I remember him
And
talking about.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I had always wondered, what if for his specific diagnosis or whatever it is, I always thought like, what? Sorry, you can hear all this noise.
Oh no, I don't. I was just checking to make
I didn't hear
sure.
it.
I was like, I periodically check to make sure I'm still recording.
Okay. If he would have had something where he was around other people all the time, like a job where he had to, structure is good for people with depression.
Mm-hmm.
But I always wonder, what if he had a normal job? I know that would have been hard for him because he never wanted to, but what if he did have that? Would it have helped him psychologically?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of being at home all day, sitting in front
He
of a
would have been
computer.
bored.
Huh?
I know. I mean, I obviously like this is one of those questions and literally impossible to answer.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, I get what you're saying. I definitely think that like, I don't know, what he was doing while like Everland was a great project to take on. It is also like the kind of thing that you just do from your house, whatever.
Yeah.
Very
boring
Yeah,
and
you're
isolating.
isolated exactly.
Well, he was very stressed. I know it was very stressful too.
Mm-hmm.
Extremely stressful.
I kind of wonder if like him and Talbadar had been living together, how that would have changed things. But
Right.
I guess I guess there isn't really a point in wondering about that. It's, you know what I mean? It feels like I'm just wondering about
Absolutely.
something for
I
just
think
to
it's
fantasize.
totally natural when somebody takes their life to come up with so many different scenarios in your head
Yeah,
Yeah.
of what could have prevented it from happening. It's like the most normal
conversations
thing.
and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, ever. But I think it's important to just tell yourself, like, no matter what situation, it just that's just how the timeline went.
yeah,
It's really hard though to come to terms with for sure.
Yeah, I
definitely.
just keep thinking of all these different scenarios where it's like, could it have been this? Would it have been better if it was this?
Yeah.
What about this? And I know Tal was such an amazing friend to Byron. Like, Tal was so good for Byron. I do think when Tal was around, he felt much better because Tal gave him encouragement. And Tal was like a very level headed person, very good heart. And I think that was good for Byron.
Yeah,
I too think like people who are extremely suicidal and depressed, they're not hopeless. But I think for people like Byron, like life is just going to be so hard,
Forever.
like forever.
Forever.
And that was really hard for Byron to accept that, I think there was this like constant expectation, like he just wanted to be cured, like just 100%, never feel sad again, never feel lonely. And I think that I sometimes think he did feel that way for a while, and he really truly believed he was cured. And then when those feelings started to come back, it was like devastating to him. Like it almost made everything that he felt before 1,000 times worse
Mm-hmm.
because in his
It was like, oh
mind,
fuck, I thought I had it.
yeah.
No, I'm
And I
back
think
to
that
where I was.
contributed to how low he felt those last couple months for sure.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
Maybe if, he had been doing meditation and seeing Dr. K off stream regularly for a long period of time, maybe I'd like to believe that, like, with work and the right approach, the like you can like level the extremes of bipolar a bit so that, like, when it is on the negative, it's like not as devastating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, people
Yeah.
can function, with the proper help. It's just hard. But I do think sometimes, like, maybe Byron was alive for longer than he was set up to, if that makes sense. Because
Well,
he,
because you've had him discuss in the past how he has, and this is something he's openly talked about how he has tried to take his life
right.
prior. He's very open about that. And I think, like, for Byron, thinking about the long term of, like, oh my God, I have all this life to live. Am I going to have to do this forever? Am I going to have to, it's just too painful for me to have to go on like this, like forever. It's just going to be this constant battle. And I think for him, thinking about that was like, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not,
Mhm.
just not going to.
Yeah, like in that moment, he was just like, I can't.
Yeah.
Just like, he was
Total
just like, I'm done.
impulsive.
That's like the thing about suicide, is that, like, that moment, could have gone a different way, and then who knows
Yeah.
how that would have changed everything if he had just been able to hold. But, like, it's just a moment of weakness that
Yeah.
is like changes everything.
I don't know if you're a therapist or mine, Jenna, but it's like if a building is on fire and your only option is to, like, escape, like that's how it feels. Like you're just in this immense amount of pain that nothing feels like a solution other than that.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't understand it because it's like they reach this point of, like, sanity versus insanity where a sane brain cannot even, like, fathom what that feels like unless maybe you've been to that point before.
Right.
But that's it's not, I wouldn't say it's like, well, I'm sure a lot of people have
No, I know.
in
I was
their
discussing
life.
that with my therapist too, and she was saying at that point, when you're making a decision like that, you're on a completely different plane. Like
Yeah, you're not even in, like, reality
you're
anymore.
not in reality anymore.
Yeah. It's just so intense though, it's like, and again, how do you help someone that is like that so intense about
Yeah.
how they feel?
See, you know what I think would be great for Dr. K to do is literally talk about this exact subject of, like, suicide and what do you do and all these things, but not in a therapy setting, just talking about it.
Openly have an open discussion about it, because I think oftentimes people feel awkward talking about suicide and and even death. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know what it is, but, like, we are really uncomfortable with death as
Yeah.
human beings, even though we're all going to die one day. And so I struggle with that too, like
Sure,
my
me
own
too.
mortality. I do wish that there were more discussions in the mental health community, not just about death, but also feeling those feelings. And
Yep.
maybe if it was openly discussed without being judged or shame was attached to it,
Mhm.
it could help a lot of people.
I agree.
Because there is shame when you feel that way, you know?
You just
Absolutely.
think, oh my God, I don't want people to think I'm crazy. I don't want people to
Right.
think I'm not reliable or an unhireable person or a bad friend. There's so many different things behind that of not wanting to talk
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
And that is
Yeah.
one of the things that I do like about Dr. K, is that he is bringing these things to the surface for people. I think that that's one thing that's been left untouched, but I understand why, because of what happened, why that might be hard for him to discuss.
Yeah. I think I'd respect him though a lot for someone with such a big audience to, take kind of that, I don't know, like, be the bigger person and just be like, we're going to talk about it.
But again, and I'm not taking either side, it's just that, like, we don't know, because there's so much gray area, we don't know the legalities that could be involved, of
Well, I
why.
think having an open discussion about just not one specific person, but just a
Talking
general
to the
discussion.
stream, yeah.
Right. But
Yeah.
I don't know that he even wants
To open that can of worms.
to open
Yeah,
that can
exactly.
of worms because it could lead to other things, and that might be very uncomfortable for him.
Right.
Yeah.
Kind of like how if he's doing AoE healing, like maybe has the opposite sort of effect,
Right.
maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to take like just a moment to talk about, I guess, like just get you guys to talk about like what you do like about Dr. K, because I know that this video is 100% gonna like be met with
I know.
like response, and like I think I don't want people to like hear you guys ragging on Dr. K and then
No,
you
yeah.
know what
I
I mean?
appreciate that.
Yeah, I definitely want pause because I drink this huge thing of water and this I again, but I'll be right back, Jackie, if you want to
Yeah.
answer.
No. I mean, I think I mentioned this earlier. I really appreciate the fact that he is choosing to speak openly about mental health.
Mhm.
Like, and I think I said when we first started talking, anyone who chooses to do that is like, that is awesome because it's not talked about enough. And people in the gaming community feel alone for feeling that way. And if there is someone out there who makes them feel less alone, that's totally a positive. So I definitely admire him for doing that.
Mhm.
Um, but I mean, there's nobody's perfect, and there's definitely going to be things about the whole thing behind it where I'm like, okay, I like it, but I don't like it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I personally, and this is just on a personal thing, because for me, it's like I've seen so many therapists, like I wouldn't find him helpful to treat me therapy wise, because I kind of like the type of therapy where it's like, this is what's wrong with you, and like kind of more like tough love, like
Mm.
that's what works for me. Um, so there are definitely some discussions he has where I'm like, I wouldn't benefit from this at all. But I mean, no one is the same, you know?
Yeah,
And he
definitely.
could really help certain people who his approach, because every therapist is different, what they find useful.
Absolutely, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Um, sorry, what was the question?
The duck is
Just
halfway in there. I just realized that.
yeah,
No,
I noticed it
just
too.
chilling.
The question was just like any positives about Dr. K and what he does that you wanted to put out there.
Yeah, I think like what he's done for this community in general is amazing. Like you have a bunch of people that, like I said, are more introverted and maybe don't want to, they're scared. And this is like I can see where it can be so comforting to somebody to listen to this and be like, yes, I feel that way. I don't know how to deal with my emotions, or I don't know how to, get help. And this is like kind of a way,
And overall, a little guidance or something.
yeah, a little guidance, opening up the door for them to get help. And like I said, I don't think that Dr. K is like this inherently evil
No.
person. I think his intentions are pure, and I do think he wants to help people. I really,
Yeah,
really do.
Yeah, I think
absolutely.
so
I
too.
think I think he really does want to help people. He wants to take the pain away from people who suffer.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's been, I mean, he's discussed it before about his father and everything. It's his life's work to
Yeah.
help people. He has a
Dharma.
goal. Yeah, his
Basically.
dharma. And yeah.
No, I 100% agree with like with both of you guys said. Like I do think that like his intentions are noble, and
Mm-hmm.
like I don't I like hesitate to use the phrase like the road to hell is paved with good intentions, because I don't even want to say that like what he's doing is the road to hell or anything. I just think
Hmm.
obviously there are consequences, and that perhaps he's like overly ambitious with how much he wants to help the world, that he is
Yeah.
not being aware of them. Or at least I would like to believe that like for the most part like he's not aware of the negative byproducts of what he does.
Yeah.
If he is aware, that would be a different story. I would feel kind of uncomfortable to find that out.
Yeah. I don't
Well,
think he yeah.
I mean, I'm sure I don't know, like, if he does any research on himself or looks at Reddit and sees what people are saying. Like, he has to be somewhat, like, aware that there might be a school of people who feel like maybe it's not so kosher. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the majority of people really love him.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. And I
I mean, I,
think they
you know,
should.
yeah.
Yeah, I do too.
Um, it's just a really
I think when it's like
terrible fucking situation. Like,
yes.
and there's no, it's like this. There's no, what can you say about it? You know,
Mhm.
lots
And
to say,
two,
but
it's like super personal for us too because we
Of
were
course.
very close with someone, you know.
Yeah.
I think anyone who was close to someone who took their life and had someone that they were speaking to at the time, anyone naturally would want to speak to them
Right.
or to understand. Like that's just the most like of course you want to, but again, there's like confidentiality things where you can't, I suppose.
then
But
also, if it's not real therapy and there is no confidentiality agreement,
Why couldn't he
then
speak
why
to you?
can't you talk to me
yeah,
about it?
why
Right.
Why
right.
can't you talk to me about it as his friend
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
just to comfort me because this is literally somebody that I have known for.
Yeah.
I'm 32. I've known him since I was 17. Like this was my best friend on the face of this earth, and I just wish I could have had that. Like, I understand that's not
Especially in
his
those
job to
moments.
provide that for me. It's not his job, but I
Yeah.
just wish he could have given me a little more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially when it's so fresh like that, the week after you lose someone like that, like all you want to do is just put like the puzzle back together, like it literally feels like a puzzle just dumped on the floor and you want to put all the pieces together. And that was like a missing piece. So it's okay, let's, discuss maybe what was discussed there and like camp. It's just not possible for us. And that was kind of hurtful, but also understandable now.
Mhm.
There's all different kinds of stages of grief, and I go back and forth like with the bargaining stage of like, what could have been this, or oh God, what if I could have done
Hmm.
this differently? And like that is the most traumatizing part because waking up every day, that is the first thing I think about. And it is like a constant,
Yeah.
it's just a
Yeah.
constant in my daily life.
Yeah, I can
Um,
kind of like I haven't been in a situation where I've lost someone to suicide, but I do remember like being in love and like that relationship ending, and that's like kind of
Oh,
like
yeah.
losing like the
It
person,
really
the
is.
relationship, you know what I mean? And I remember I was bargaining like all the time for a while. I was
Mhm.
oh, like I would constantly have these like fantasies of me talking to them, and yeah, so I totally
It's a
understand.
loss in itself.
it feels like a
Yeah.
death. You feel like your arm was cut off or something. You feel like you've been
Yeah.
cut in half and one part of your body's floating over here and one part's over here.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Especially when you're with someone for so long, you kind of like, I know it sounds terribly corny, but you feel like you almost meld into one person.
No,
Yeah.
it's totally a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The person that was the two of you together is like not there anymore.
Yeah.
Like you're
So you feel
grieving for the
like
loss of that.
grieve that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly.
Dead. It's, yeah.
I think like I don't have any more questions left, but if there's anything you guys want to add,
I'm this isn't part of the video, but I just like I am a little scared of the backlash, I have to say, because I don't want people to come for me and message me and be like, fuck you, bitch, and all this stuff, like how dare you, like I'm a little scared about that because I don't want to be seen as someone who's like demonizing Dr. K.
I'm thinking of because I'm also worried that people are going to come for me because obviously I made the documentary and I think that people are going to be like, well, you're to blame or something like
Mhm.
that.
Hmm.
And let alone the fact that they're just going to be super pissed that I'm relaying any criticisms at all. But I'm thinking maybe like I should actually just in the video itself talk about how like I am, part of me didn't want to talk about this because of the potential backlash, and then like maybe I can even show you saying that what you just said right now.
Yeah. I would appreciate that because I do want people to know that, I'm still grieving. This just comes from a place of like, I need to talk about it. And it comes from a
Yeah.
place of hurt. And I don't know all the right answers. I don't know what the answer is. It's just something to discuss and consider.
Yeah.
Right. I think that there's no harm in having an opinion and feeling something and discussing it. I mean, we're not trying to like do anything harmful.
Yeah. The
It's just a
opposite, in fact.
discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the opposite. I think if anything, if it creates more of a discussion about mental health, then that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I would be very devastated if, and I don't like I can't imagine this happening because I'm gonna write the video in a way where I'm very clear that I like Dr. K. Gary
Yeah.
said
Yeah,
it,
good.
and you guys said it. So I want that all in there. But I'd be devastated if like he couldn't do any of what he's doing anymore because of the video. That'd be
Yeah.
horrible. Like a big loss to the world.
Yeah, that's not our intention either. Like,
Mhm.
we wouldn't want to create something that would end up happening, you know?
Yeah. If this meant that like Dr. K stops doing the pseudotherapy but then continued everything else, like I think I'd be okay with that. Because
Yeah.
But I don't think that he would want that to happen
no, I don't think
because
this is most lucrative, like
exactly. If we're just going to discuss it on a business level, he's successful with that.
it's the foundation of his success. I don't think that
Yeah, it's the
he
foundation.
was
Exactly.
known until Byron spoke to him, in fact.
Yes, exactly. And now he's known for speaking to other streamers. So that
Yep.
keeps his, you know, his idea alive.
It's hard because I don't know him personally, obviously. I don't.
Mhm.
So I can't form like a judgment on his character.
Yeah, same.
I don't know his true character. I've never spoken to him. I mean, I've spoken to him off, in an email, but you can't tell inflection from that. I can see in his
Right.
videos he's very genuine, but I don't know how he would be speaking to me.
Yeah, and there's no way to know like if is genuine for real, right?
Yeah.
He comes off as genuine, but like who knows? Because you don't know him. And
Yeah.
I agree with that because I've even like mentioned in videos before that like people need to stop thinking that they know who public figures are that they've never
Yeah.
met.
You don't know what
It's
goes
weird.
on behind closed doors.
Exactly.
We don't know.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Byron, like I said, and I will reiterate, like Byron talked about suicide since he was a teenager. So it is not anything that anyone did. It's not anything
Yeah.
that anyone said. It
Right.
is a combination of a lifetime of problems and issues.
Exactly,
Mhm.
yeah.
And feeling that way.
Right. Exactly. And I try to
And
tell
every-
that to people when they say like, "Oh, it was this one thing." That's not how
No.
these things work.
No, yeah. I mean, I know there's certain situations, like I think for men too, like if they've never been depressed, like one reason why men take their lives is for financial reasons.
Hmm.
But like if you knew Byron personally, you knew that this was like, I mean, I met him when I was 11 and always knew he felt that way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
So
Byron made impulse very quick impulse decisions. So I just keep, here's the bargaining stage again going, my God, what if I could have just talked him out of whatever
Yeah,
was
dissuaded him in that
Yeah,
moment.
and just been like, look, you're having it'll pass, but you can't do that to yourself.
yeah,
I spend enough time doing that almost every day.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it can drive you absolutely insane.
Yeah, it'll just lead to suffering.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Trying to change something that isn't actually
Right.
Exactly, and
There's nothing you could do.
I can ruminate over it until the day I fucking die. Is it going to bring Byron back? No. So it does not do me any good to think, what if?
Right.
It is an obsessive thought because I so badly wish I could have an answer, but I have to be comfortable with knowing that I will never have an answer.
Yeah.
And I just have to get used to that.
That's the truth.
That is the hardest. I'd have to say out of everything, that is the hardest part. Also, the fact that I just miss my best friend every single day of my life.
Yeah.
But those two things are just terrible to live with.
Likewise.
And there's no like one guaranteed way of dealing with that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Something
Mhm.
different works for everyone. Like I
Yeah.
know for me, like the meditation stuff like is helpful. I know that when I feel like a really negative emotion, if I'm able to sort of like step outside of it and like focus on the physical sensations that make up the feelings of that emotion, I find that
Mhm.
very helpful. It kind of like turns
Hmm.
it into something different, and
Yeah.
you know what I mean. It becomes less of like a thought cycle and more of like a experience in the body.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's like good for everyone, and I don't know what the consequences of that are. So like, I'm not telling it. Do not like,
There you go. Don't.
Disclaimer.
Yeah.
Disclaimer.
Don't do that. Like, look into it if
Yeah.
you're interested and read about it and talk to
Right.
someone who knows what they're talking. I'm just like some muck who started meditating a few months ago. So,
Everyone has to find their
No,
own
meditation helps a lot of
their-
people.
their healthy way of dealing with their issues.
exactly.
It's
Yeah.
for everybody. So
I'm like in the dark now. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I'm like,
You're just
progressively it's gotten darker. It started out like
Yeah.
very well lit, and like
I'm
You
so
have
sorry. You should have told me to turn my light on.
no, it's fine. I mean, at first I thought you turned off your light or something. I didn't
No.
because it's like 11 p.m. here, so I didn't even like
Oh yeah.
forgot about the
sun
time zone
was like,
difference.
yeah.
Anyways,
Wow,
yeah.
this has been awesome. Like
Yeah,
honestly,
it was really great talking to you about it.
Yeah, no, it was great talking to you guys too. Definitely gonna edit everything we said, like post. This is off the record. I'm probably gonna like cut most of that out. Maybe like leaving some of this like ending stuff when we like went back to the main topic. But what I'm gonna do is so like some of this is gonna be in the video itself, and then I'm just gonna upload like the interviews as like a separate video, maybe on either on my main or my second channel, so that people can, I don't know, get a better idea of everything.
yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, I think that's great. When do you plan on like how long do you want to, when do you think you're going to release it?
So I've written like only 2 pages of it. Mostly I've just been doing research. I've only written like 2 pages so far. I want to ideally like release it this month.
Mhm.
I might be in July. This is like, in terms of YouTube, this is like my primary focus. YouTube itself isn't my primary focus because like I've had to get a job and stuff, and so that's my focus. But I am hoping to have it out within like a month or so.
Awesome.
That's cool. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll definitely let you guys know when it's about to be ready.
Yeah.
I can't believe we haven't like talked more before. I mean, brief discussions on Twitter,
like
but
Twitter,
yeah.
I think too, like I have openly talked about how I feel about him on my Twitter and my stream, even when I'm like drunk on my stream and I'm just like, I don't like the guy, like I feel like so I'm not worried.
You didn't get like a
Personally.
super negative reaction when you did that?
No, because the people that watch me too, they know like how outspoken I am. And I think like, I also don't have like the biggest audience ever. And I felt like comfortable to talk about it with them, and it's pretty interesting because when I do openly talk about it on my Twitter, like the majority of people will chime in and be like, yeah, I kind of felt that way too. So,
Well, I'm just afraid people are going to be like, oh, look at this, Jenna, coming out of the woodwork, trying to stay relevant or something, trying to stay.
well, I think you fear that because this just shows the type of person somebody is, though, because even when he passed away and we were just trying to raise money to have him.
People told me that I was going to take all the money and everything.
Yeah.
And that I was
those people in general are just not.
Yeah, very toxic.
Right. Toxic mentality. Exactly.
If I wanted to capitalize on anything, it's like I had so many opportunities to stream and become a streamer. I had a great starting point. I never did because I never fucking wanted to.
Right.
If anything, like us doing this and wanting to talk to you is because we actually care about mental health.
Exactly.
Well,
a lot.
it's like I'm taking a risk, putting myself in a position to be talked shit about. So it's worse for me.
Right.
Mhm.
So like for me, I actually am passionate about mental health as a whole. And I want more people to talk about it. And I want more people to be comfortable with seeing the pros and the cons to something like this.
Because
being published on
psychology
the
is
internet.
not perfect. It's not.
Right.
There's a lot of discussion on, some people hate psychologists. They hate medicine. They hate all that stuff. So it is a touchy
They don't
subject.
believe in it.
It's like hard to know what the right answer is. So anytime you're discussing that, it's scary.
Yeah. I think there's no harm in having an open discussion about this at all.
I believe that too. Like, I know that it's one thing that like his fan base will react negatively. That's like probably unavoidable, just because like that's how he has a cult
you have
of
an
personality. Yeah, exactly. So, but I do think that like, so like I had been thinking about this since last year, and like it took until now for me to decide like, okay, this is something I should do, like conversation that needs to happen. Before I was kind of like, oh man, like this is really like gray area. I don't know, I don't even know what my thoughts are on this. And then eventually over time it became like, wait a minute, I don't know what my thoughts are on this. Like how could anyone say they do? Like it's so hard to talk about. Like we need
Yeah,
to
it
address
is.
that very fact in itself.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
there's been so many times where I've wanted to tweet something out or start a discussion, and I've had things written up and then backed out because I was like, fuck, I don't want to deal. I just don't
think
want
for
to deal with
you
this.
too, it's harder because you have more people who like follow you and know who you are. You know, me, it's like I have my small community of people who at this point know who I am and like I feel comfortable to share my true thoughts more.
Right. There was like less of a spotlight on you
Yeah,
in terms of Byron's streams.
right. And people have like some of his viewers like I went into his like Discord before and I totally certain people that came into my stream are the same people that would talk shit about me in his Discord. And I like months ago wrote something in there where I was like, I will no longer be coming in here. I think I wrote like everyone was fake in there or something. Like I wrote something mean. So I think like they know how I feel about them a little bit.
Yeah.
I've never even gone in there before. I just don't
Yeah.
want to.
Right.
All I care about is helping people who feel that way, preventing something like that from happening again. What other things can we do to help people who feel that way? And honoring Byron too. And
Yeah.
that's all there is.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess this probably concludes it. The talk.
Okay, cool.